wants attention.
That's right. He's on the show right now. He's ready.
Yeah, that's what dogs do.
All right. So, hey, welcome back to another episode of Take a Knee Tuesdays with Mike Wallace, and I'm Scott Tucker. My dog Stugie's right behind me. But been a few weeks, Mike. How you doing?
Man, it has been a few weeks, right? I know you and Jen have been busy, and we've all been busy here at Blue Water as well too. In fact, it has been a little over 2 weeks, right? It's about 2.5 or 3 weeks where we've been putting our shoulder into it hard. And so
right before Thanksgiving, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. And so, in our space, right, that was a trip out to San Diego in support of the CNAF Major Commanders Training Symposium out there. And then right back on the red eye back here, just to head up to Washington, D.C. to do our end of year, career progression cohort. And now back here catching up on end of year business. We've got our networking event tomorrow, so hopefully I'll see you there, just kind of relax and kind of have a little bit of catch up with some of the members that are going to be in attendance there, and another opportunity to thank our corporate partners for their support throughout the year. But yeah, man, it's just been a blur. So I'm kind of like waiting to get to, at the end of tomorrow's event, right? Kind of give us a chance to really take a knee, right? And catch our breath a little bit, right? As we get ready for 2024, right? It's right around the corner. So
yeah, I know you weren't quite on a vacation, but I sort of was. I was on a Thanksgiving trip, and I needed almost a week to take a vacation from the vacation. So it's never, travel is never good, but it can be productive. And I know you were having, I did as well, but I want to dig in before we get into kind of what I was up to. After we had a conversation yesterday to kind of regroup. And you were telling me a little bit about your trip to San Diego. And so I look forward to having you share that a little bit. But it brought to mind this comment. Again, I didn't retire from the military. I've been out in this quasi, space for 15 plus years. So I've just seen this stuff over and over again. I'm constantly having little epiphanies that are like, not in the military anymore. That's how things work there. It's professionalism and stuff and everything on the outside, but we can totally reframe and think about things in different ways. And for me, it was always just saying, or I think the biggest thing I learned from the military was simply the idea of an after action review. Lesson. Sure. What was the lesson learned? Did we learn anything or not? And I've just kind of taken that as the base philosophy of my life, and not try to beat myself up too much. Not that I don't. I'm not, all rainbows and unicorns.
Well, it's like what you mentioned as we were getting started, right, for our discussion today, is we all have high standards, and we hold ourselves to those high standards, right? And we put a lot of effort into our discussion, our content, right? Because we want, success as we define it, right, is success in many cases of our members, right? If they're successful, they find value with the message and some of the content that we're putting out. That's a measure of success, and we take that seriously, right? I think, and so I'll just segue a little bit, if I can, right, to the trip out to San Diego. And you probably remember, right, when the command reached out to us eventually, or early, I should say. We initially said no, right? I mean, hey, Blue Water, for our members, and they get that. We are not a, traveling road show, take a message out. Like that's, we're not in this sales business, right? I mean, that's just never been a part of what we wanted or what we envisioned for Blue Water to be. In fact, to carve it out and refine it a little bit more in discussion, right? And Scott, you've been along for the ride since almost day one, and we just wanted our results to speak for themselves. We wanted to have members. We wanted them to find value with what we were offering. And then we wanted them to go out and just share their keen insights, or going, hey, there's a different way, You don't have to just be acceptant of the legacy institutionalized programs like TAB and again, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus because there's a gem or two for every organization that's out there, but I could easily fill in the rest of that sentence with 4 or 5 different organizations. You don't have to be acceptant of these programs that aren't modern, updated, current, relevant, instructed by individuals who have been there, done that, all the things that we hold dearly in delivery of our message. And there's a different way. And we want our members to share with future members, right, their successes. And so when the command reached out and they just said, hey, we want you to come and speak to this very senior group of Navy leaders, right, the major commanders. These are your carrier COs and air wing commanders and your commodores and base commanding officers. And, there's all, a host of other leadership forums that are out there. And it's the senior leadership that's out there. And the air boss, who I hold in very high regard, he was passionate about, hey, we are not taking care of our people unless we provide them a glimpse into what is going to be required for you to be successful in your next venture. Because, having been in the military, right, we all get out eventually. We don't like to have that conversation. We don't like to talk about it. But at some point in time, you absolutely have to, whether it's thrust upon you because you are being shown the door, or, for whatever reason, the time is right and you've decided that. That's a personal decision between an individual, their family, the Navy family. We don't get into that, right? And so I really applauded him for at least leaning forward in that. But I come back to, I think we said 2 iterations of no, thank you. We just don't have time. And I was really concerned about 2 things. Our end of year cohort in Washington, D.C., the timeline to make sure that was laying flat was very, very narrow, right? And then the other one was, I'm going to now have to navigate this message delivery. And when I say that, how do you tell somebody about the goodness of the organization you're doing without coming across as trying to sell something, right? And I openly throw that out for members, people that are listening, you, Scott. I mean, that is not, at some point in time, if you're going to speak to a group like this, you got to say, hey, here's why I'm credible. Here's a little bit about me. So I am qualified, to deliver this message, but don't do it in a way that it sounds like you're selling something. I mean, I challenge you to do it. It's not an easy thing. You can say the words, this is not a sales pitch. And then you go into delivering the message. And at the end of the day, you've got a couple of individuals that say, hey, it kind of felt like a sales pitch. And I'm like, that language I wrestle with that. And now I will tell you, we've seen the feedback from the delivery out there, and the N5 has provided that, and the chief of staff. And I guess if you've got, let's just say these are about the numbers. I don't have it here in front of me. I just sent it to you earlier, but let's say you've got 80 or 90 respondents, right?
Wow.
And let's say you've got 80% of those individuals, that are going to just say, hey, best ever, right? Just like, hey, thanks for making the time. And this was awesome. And then you've got, 10% are saying, hey, it was really good. Wasn't the best I'd ever seen, but, we really appreciate you making the time to come out here. You opened our eyes about a lot of stuff. And then you've got 1%, 2 individuals that say, I'm not sure that this message has got a place here in this venue, and really felt like you were trying to sell me something, right? And I guess where our bar is so high, Scott, right, that we truly do want nothing but the best. And people forget, I wore the cloth of the nation for 30 years. I'm not trying to sell you anything. Hey, I've got my son in naval aviation now, helicopter pilot down at Jax, right? The next generation's at it. I don't have it within me to be a threat to retention or to try to cheapen the experience. It is not in my makeup. That's just so far away from who I really am as a person and what I've spent my life building. But I do recognize what every single person in that audience doesn't recognize is that sooner or later you will have to deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
And you are going to be exposed to no less than a gajillion choices. You know as well as I do, we call it the ocean of goodwill. And you know as well as I do that not all of those resources are the best that they can be or should be. But as a transitioning senior leader from the military, we don't have a yardstick. You don't have the wherewithal to know what good is. And I don't mean that to be insulting.
Yeah.
We just don't have that experience base. And so at the heart of what we're trying to build here at Blue Water is say, listen, we were you. We navigated this space. I'm not trying to sell anything, but if you're looking for a trusted resource who's going to, have your best interests, at heart and is looking to build and make you a part of the success of this program here at Blue Water, then come knock on our door. We're here for you. But man, in execution, that is not an easy message to get across, that you don't come across as trying to sell something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so
it's tough.
And so it felt like you didn't succeed, regardless, or fully succeed to an expectation that maybe you had set for yourself. Whatever. The way we talked yesterday, you felt disappointed in just, you maybe you just didn't know. And my thought immediately was that, the 80% that said that was awesome, then that's it. That's all you need. Because let's put this in the, we're talking about this from, self-employed, kind of business, veteran business owner kind of perspective where, and we've been out for a few years, so we get what we've gotten ourselves into. But how is it not the exact same for any retiree who's putting themselves out there in front of an audience? They have to pitch themselves one way or the other, and they're going to get a lot of no's or non-answers or vague responses or maybe really, really tough responses.
Right.
And then a lot of people are going to say, and a few people, it's probably going to be way lower percentages. A few people are going to say you're awesome. And so the lesson learned, going back to the after action review, is, follow the easiest course of action.
Yeah.
And just lean into what we're good at. And then this is the reframe, the big reframe, all this, especially when it comes to the sales conversation. How do I get over this, call it imposter syndrome a lot? Because who am I to even say this in the first place? I feel confident about what I got to say, but now you're always going to know someone's got, a better idea, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. Let them have their better ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or not like your idea, and see if they go do anything with it like you did. They're not.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
It's like people critique my books or whatever. And
you're absolutely right. I mean, in the feedback that you and our leadership partners here at Blue Water, like Scott McDonald and Joe Dalton and Steve Weeman, I mean, everybody's coming back and they're going, hey, Mike, you got to keep this in perspective. And having a high bar in the world that we came from, we go, no. There's two people out of the 89 that said that they weren't happy with this, and this is what it seemed like to them. So I want to put all efforts into, understanding why these two individuals don't see it, right, and don't get it.
And you can glean lessons, of course, from that feedback, of course. But be careful, and this is where business owners two things goes wrong. One, we focus on the failures and just stop. Just can't take it. Just quit instead of learning. Or it pulls too much energy from those you're meant to serve.
You're exactly right. Right. We've known this from leadership, right? I mean, 10% of your workforce, the problems that take 90% of your time when you should be focusing on the 90% that are doing it great and give them, the additional resources and attention that they need. Right.
But now you have choice.
Yeah.
Now you're the ultimate boss. There's no orders to follow. There's no SOPs and all that kind of stuff. And that goes for every military retiree. That's the lesson. And the real reframe here is that the sooner we admit that we're all in sales. How did you end up in the military in the first place? Somebody sold you on the idea.
Yeah, we're all in sales.
Giving an order is just
or not. Yeah,
like we're just using small mouth noises and symbols to put ideas into people's head one way. Will you hire me? Here's my resume. It's sales.
Yeah.
And the better we learn those skill sets, it's not
Absolutely.
that we get better at sales. Sure, there's some cheesy sales tactics to learn, and you can, that's why you get called a salesman. But if you're persuading and communicating, reading Cialdini and those types of books, then we're just building a communication skill set and we get better at it. And whether or not you need to go in front of an audience or you learn how to do kind of what we're doing online here, it's a one-on-one interview. Sure. That's really what we're trying to do is sure sell ourselves. And we just got to kind of own it.
I think maybe one of the reasons that, because we did put a lot of time and the message, if you were to hear it, it was meant to be founded in data and analytics, meaning
that's perfect. Yeah.
I just said
results.
Okay. This isn't about what Mike Wallace thinks or anything. Here's the sample size of 250 people that have been through the Blue Water program over the last, couple of years. We pulled that sample size right out of the middle, right? It wasn't early on and it wasn't late. It was kind of right out of the middle. And we said, of these individuals, this is what Blue Water looks like. Here's the percentage that are Navy. Here's the percentage that are Army. Here's the Air Force. Here's the 06s, here's the 05s, 04. Here's all the percentage breakdown. In other words, man, we really sliced and diced that grouping 9 different ways to Sunday, right? Just so we could tell the audience, like, we're going to talk about a lot of things, but this is the grouping that we went to, that we extracted these inputs from. So then we said, okay, how soon are you expecting to receive an offer letter from a company? And it doesn't have anything to do with my opinion. I can tell you that no company is going to write you an offer letter 6 months out. I mean, I don't want to say ever, but it can happen, right? But now I've got data, and the data says in this grouping over a 2-year period of time, the one individual that received an offer letter was 120 days out. The average is 37 days. I mean, that's a mathematical discussion. It doesn't have anything to do with what I think. I'm just citing information that's coming from the group. Or what's the delta in revenue that you can expect between an 05 and an 06? And what does that look like? Well, we can talk analytically to that now, right? And how long is it going to take you to get a job? Here's the national average. If you do these things in Blue Water, your trip looks a little bit shorter. And then how do you quantify that? Well, that's 2 additional months that you're going to be receiving a paycheck. And in the world where you're making $15,000 to $20,000 a month, right, in this new venture in your life, hey, you're welcome. We just made you $40,000, right? I mean, or it's less time and less frustration, or however you want to measure that. So, man, we tried to put together a message that just brought forth the analytics that didn't have anything to do with opinion, right? And we just wanted to share experiences, vignettes, and data with the group and just say, you guys take from it what you want, right? But this is math, right?
Yeah. Then I think you did the right thing.
That approach, but to still hear people say, I felt like you were trying to sell it, or something. I mean, and I get it. That's 2 people out of 89 or whatever it was. So anyway, we work hard. We have a high bar, and we want to deliver a good product for our customer, right? For our members, right? We're excited about it.
And the real insight, I think, from this is the fact that you put yourself in just a completely different environment that wasn't the Blue Water, model per se. And so whether or not you do it again, you've got experience, if it fits into your future model. But if you didn't try it, you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
So that's the cool thing. I've done so many, versions.
But there's the last thing I'll say about it, and then I'm going to move on. We learned early on, Scott, right, that unless people have skin in the game, right, they I don't want to say never, but more often than not, they will rarely value, right, unless they've got skin in the game. You know what I mean? Like, for example, if you go back to Blue Water's first year, and many of our members don't know this, and our corporate partners are very generous. We've had corporate partners say, hey, Mike, we understand some members may be deterred. Hey, our corporate partner funding goes to augment everybody's registration fee, right? I mean, above and beyond. For every dollar that people register with, we take corporate partner funds and probably match it 2 to 1 easily, right? Just so we can still do these cohorts. We have very giving corporate partners. But some of the corporate partners said, hey, if I was to give you some more money and we want to sponsor somebody that can come for free. And so we looked at that. And do you remember what that looked like in our first year? We offered 15 sponsorships, meaning if you're deterred by the registration fee, don't worry. The corporate partner is going to pay for you to come. Just come and be a part of this. 13, and I want everybody to listen to this, 13 of the 15 didn't even show. Mm-hmm. Like I'll go, hey, it's not important. Or, hey, I got something that came up. Sorry, Mike can't make it or whatever. I go, wait a minute, we're giving you this. We're giving it to you. They go, yeah, well, I'm sorry, I can't make it. 2 out of the 13 showed up. And so what's the takeaway? Is the takeaway that you got to engage these guys and convince them that, I go, no. Unless you're willing to take that step and put skin in the game and make it important to yourself, it's not going to be important to you. Yeah. And I've relearned that lesson time and time again. We just had another individual, right? A good friend of mine said, hey, I've got a niece who's getting out of the Army and I want you to help her. And, and I said, hey, I will, but here's the one requirement. She has to come to a cohort and she has to be a part of the network, right? And so we turn the wheel, we engage, and she gets a job. Congratulations, right? And she pursues and does very well. Does she show up to a cohort? No. Because she's not vested into it. Yeah. And so when we started approaching this, hey, you're going to go to this thing in San Diego, and it's a room full of people that have to be there. You with me? They got to be there. So a little bit in the back of my mind, I'm like, hey, is there any skin in the game here? Maybe, maybe not. But is this an opportunity maybe that we can, I love this audience. I was part of this audience a few years ago. And I know now a lot about what they don't know or haven't even thought about. And I want to share with them because that's what we do. We make it better for the next person, but have it not resonate on that level, right? Hey, I felt like you were trying to sell us something, right? And so that just, it stung a little bit. But again, the majority of the, 89% of everybody else thought it was the cat's meow. So I don't want to focus on it. Okay, and so we need to move on. I don't want to dwell on it. So.
Well, no. Hey, this is the point. Is just being honest with feelings and emotions, things it's hard to express when you're coming out of the military. Because, one, even if there was just one guy in the back of the room that was just like, there was an insight in that presentation that changed my outlook on post-military life. Like, just one person. That's all you got to help, right? But
true.
This comes from the paradigm of I've already done my career in the military. I have success. Therefore, all these benefits exist and everything's supposed to be free, right? Or a discount or a benefit. And the best, most wealthy people, the highest income earners, they just don't do that. They don't worry about nickel and diamond and stuff. And quite frankly, you're not even you're not even actually selling something anyways, because you're just covering costs. So it's kind of a moot point, but this is, relevant when you do the math on it. It's funny.
We are still holding out hope, right? That we're going to have such a past performance and a throughput that organizations are going to have to recognize it,
of course,
for what it is. And
then
they're going to step up, right?
Yeah.
And I think 2024, it's a good segue, right? I had conversations with Naples, Italy yesterday. Senior leader over there is reaching out saying, hey, we're still tracking this, right? We haven't forgotten about this, right? I get it. And I think the audience will get it. The world's a busy place right now. So there are some staffs and fleets, get pretty darn busy when things are going on over in the Middle East and, Ukraine and everything else. So, we get
the next one.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it was nice to have that phone call and just reminding us that, hey, they haven't forgotten about us, right? And we're still, excited about the summer for the Naval Academy Alumni Association opportunity to go up there. I do think there are large individuals that are out in San Diego, the ones that appreciated us coming out there. We did have a lot of asks saying, hey, when are you going to come and do another cohort out in San Diego? And the short answer is whenever, the Navy wants to bring us out, right? I mean, we're not gonna fly ourselves out there to do this. I mean, my wife would shoot me in the head, man, if I was funding this out of our own checkbook, right? I mean, at some point, people have to recognize, yes, we are willing to do amazing things for you, but I can't buy my own plane ticket, and Steve can't buy his own plane ticket, and Joe can't buy his own plane ticket, and you got to have a hotel to stay in. And oh, by the way, yeah, okay, I probably need to lose a few pounds, but it would sure be nice to have dinner someplace too. And then you got to rent a conference room, and right, and all the materials. So at some point in time, you got to recognize that we need somebody in that instance, aside from our corporate partners, be the corporate partner for us, Big Navy in San Diego. Step up, right? Why are you being acceptant of all these legacy institutionalized programs that are outdated and stale? And your leadership is telling you, we don't want to do this anymore. We want to do this. Then help us grow and scale by pulling us out and having us run and turn the wheels so we can build more tools and more product for the members that need it, right?
And
so
and that's essentially a small business marketing strategy, which is exactly what you've done by putting yourself out there for free. What people don't realize, they always hear about the overnight success, but it took 10 years to become an overnight success.
Yeah, it takes 10 years to be an overnight success.
And this is all the stuff people don't see in recognizing that you gotta try it out. So, but no, I appreciate you sharing.
Hey, but on a higher note, man, we went to DC right last week. We had a great end of year cohort there, man. It was a great group, just a fantastic group. We finally got our process pretty streamlined there in DC at the launch facility, right at the Watergate Hotel, which is kind of cool. The room where actual Watergate went down, and right across the street, our conference room is like right down the hall from there, and everybody wants to go down. And they've got the room made up with all kinds of newspaper articles, and they've got them all framed. It's kind of a cool little thing to see, going, wow, this is where it actually happened. And you can look right across the street where they saw the people in the thing with the you can see how people looked in there and the flashlights going around and how this all kind of busted up, right? And so that's kind of neat. But the conference room, at the launch building is just right there. So it's a good facility. And then afterwards, we just go down into the Watergate Hotel at the end of the day and have a nice beer down there. So it was a great group of people. And a huge shout out. We had a very senior leader, is a NATO member, Carl Gills. He is the defense attaché from Belgium there at Washington, D.C. And he's in attendance, and he's got some vision and some desires on how he kind of wants to work in the States here for a while before he goes back. And so
Blue Water International.
And so, he was really kind. He said, hey, in 2024, let's pick a date. We want to invite all the Blue Water cohort members over for a beer. And he's got some big digs and some, some deep beer steins over there, and wants to kind of open that up for everybody. So it was just a really fantastic group. Great, just discussion. It was a great way to end up the year, right, with a cohort like that in DC. So it was fantastic.
Very cool, man. Well, congratulations. No, glad wrapped the whole year. I can't believe it's the end of the year already.
I know it, right? It's crazy. So anyway, talk to me about you, man. How's your 2024 looking?
Up, way up. We just looks like we're gonna have our best kind of year ever, and frankly best month ever. Just kind of all wrapping up together. And to kind of wrap up the theme of today's story, I have my own success and / failure story that,
let's hear it, man.
I ended up just writing into a new book that I have coming out. So that's kind of my big announcement. Great. And this is all since my trip to Colorado. I already wrote the book. That's how inspired I was. I spent the last 4 days sitting here I'm in my garage. This is my thinking, yoga space or whatever, right? And so when I'm inspired or whatever, this is where I come to write. So I've pounded this thing out. I'm pretty excited about it because it just really tied a lot together.
So tell us, what's the title? What's it about?
It's the tentative title is the 7-figure TSP to FIA rollover. And it basically, because you always ask me, obviously we're talking about the SPPS stuff all the time, but every once in a while you'd ask me like, hey, what about the TSP thing? And I didn't have like a good thing for that. But this year, as we've been getting, a lot more, senior leaders interested in our our education and solutions around, the survivor benefit plan decision, obviously this TSP thing started to come up a lot more. And so I've been able to learn a lot from it. It's obviously been good for business and stuff, but I've finally been able to kind of tie in this other story into the whole war chest concept. And it ties back to really the story why I created US Vet Wealth altogether. And I'm writing this right in the very beginning of the book, is that my best client once fired me. And it was because I basically sold her the solution, or did the financial planning solution that was essentially what I'm offering in this exact book.
Yeah.
And like, who starts off a book saying this book is about the thing that my best client once fired me about? Right. But the point,
I tell you what, it grabs you, right? I mean, you got my attention.
Yeah. Okay. So good. That worked. But it's a true story. And, I've talked about this on podcasts, and I've written about it in way more detail in my other books. But the point was, this was a retired military officer, got a DoD contractor, making a bunch of money, was single. And was really frugal, didn't spend a lot of money, and had just saved like way more than average, $600,000-$700,000 in retirement accounts for like a 42-year-old. That just kind of not normal, right? And so, or not average. And but didn't like all the stock market volatility, didn't necessarily need to save aggressively and stuff, and so liked our solution. But then years later, moved to a new duty station, or moved to a new location, met a new financial advisor, and the person hates annuities, right? And so start putting the fear of God into him, and basically I just got an email saying, bye, and that was kind of it. And I was just like, what did I do wrong? I did all the things that you're supposed to do for, my firm said, and my mentor and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And, it took me years to realize it, but I hadn't framed it in the proper context of, what is the actual opportunity? What are the challenges of getting out of, you're coming out of the military, you've got good income, you got great income, earning prospects on the outside, in addition to your pension and VA disability and stuff. And yet still stuck in the mindset of single income active duty, not realizing, never, with no intention to actually use the money, just holding on to it, maybe making the numbers get bigger. And it's like, how is this useful? How is this useful as a financial plan? Well, I found out for the firm, it's useful because you keep all the money in the firm, and then you get to charge the fees, right? And so, it's about 10 years ago now that I was like, that this happened. And shortly after is when I, popped smoke and was like, I got to figure out how to do this on my own. So I've been, Jen and I have been basically bootstrapping this. Every dollar we've made has gone back into the business, to kind of, we're all in on this.
We hear that.
And so that it's working and tying together, it's just really cool. I'm able to put it into this story. And so I'm excited to share about, turning that essentially big failure and, tore me apart for a long time. I'm, have able to take from that, similar to kind of, how I learned the solution for the SBP solution. It's like, well, all right, somebody's going to appreciate this info. Not everybody. I get hate, too, every once in a while. How dare you go against the SBP? It's like, I'm not going against anyone.
Yeah.
I'm just saying some people don't like it. And so they say, what else is there to do? And, I found a, unique solution. So it all kind of ties in, to wrap the bow on military retirement, high income. That's what I'm saying, is like the uniqueness here. I'm not talking to all veterans or even all military retirees, but those who are already in a high income bracket or aspiring to be so. I think that's the point when you're doing a career in the military. Unfortunately, that means your pension's not enough these days with inflation and everything. So you're going to have another job anyways. The chances of you getting anything less than $150K a year is pretty low, right? I mean, what are guys averaging? Just from the salary, the new salary.
Sure. I mean, we have that data, right? I mean, in fact, I'll just share with you interestingly, right? I pulled a little bit of data when I went out because I get a lot of questions. Hey, Mike, I'm a 05. Should I get out now? What's the difference in my earning potential now? Or should I stay as an 06? It's a mathematical problem, right? I mean, I have a higher retirement, kind of thing. And for the individuals that approach us on the math problem. And again, I really don't feel comfortable advising people, hey, you should get out or not. That's your decision.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we did pull some data, right? And if you look at the government contracting space, defense industry, it is not uncommon to see 12 to 15% difference in total compensation between O5s and O6s. That's what the numbers start to show you. So let's put it in context. If you're an 06, and let's just use $150,000, right? Or as an 05, you're going to land a job at $150,000. 10%, like 15 grand on top of that, to 20 grand, if you're an 06 stepping into maybe a similar job with the same company, it is not uncommon for you to see, 06 is holding a very similar role in a company at $170, right? $175. And so you start looking at this data and you're like, isn't that interesting? But here's the thing I really found interesting. That's about true. And it's hard. We don't have enough data yet to say definitively this is what it looks like, but we've got enough that's you can look at it and go, wow, okay, yeah, that's legit. Same holds true for defense industry. So big defense players, Booz Allen, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed, some of these bigger ones, government contracting as well too. But when individuals get out, and I labeled it the other bucket, if you want to pursue corporate, venture capital, private equity, if you want to go to work, starting your own business, right? What do you see variances between 05s and 06s in the other bucket out there? We couldn't find a discriminator, right? What does it come down to? What's your network look like? How good are you at selling yourself? Comes back to sales, right? How good are you at expressing your value to a hiring manager in a specific company in their language and explaining to them how you're going to solve their problems for them? How good are you at that? That is what carries the weight. We've got 05s that are way off the top of the chart compensation wise, and 06s that didn't pursue that so well. But then you also have the point and the takeaway is rank means less in the other bucket. But in the GS and defense world, right, you're going to pay for that experience because we're going to aim it at some military project that you were probably a part of. And it kind of makes sense, right? Maybe it's not an aha moment for you or me, or, when I thought about it, I go, well, I guess if I would have thought about it, I probably could have guessed that, right? But to see the data, look at this and you go, wow, okay, that's some truth there, right? And so a lot of times when guys come to me and go, hey, what can I expect compensation-wise? I go, well, what are you going to pursue? Right? I mean, and what does that look like? And if you even wanted to get into the conversation, it's like, okay, this is what defense and government contracting world on average pays. But if you look at the other bucket is big. If you want to stretch your legs and get out into some aviation safety department for some stand-up like Joby Aviation or Wisk Aviation or one of these leading aviation companies that are going to be flying taxis over our heads here pretty soon, dude, there's some pretty decent compensation out there. They're well-funded efforts, right? You're going to leave your comfort zone. You're going to have to learn a new skill, but you can pursue that compensation. So it's just an interesting data conversation, not necessarily just an opinion based, right? And that's really at the heart, Scott, of what we're trying to build here at Blue Water. And I don't want to get into opinion based conversations. I want to get into, let's take a look at the data. What does that show? Where's everybody going? Everybody that's been through our doors, we counted them up, right? I mean, of the guys that have landed, 31% pursue major defense, big defense industry.
Okay.
29% government contracting, but 40% are pursuing what's in the other bucket.
Yeah.
Meta, Google, Amazon, right? New York Life, financial account, right? Whatever, you fill in the bank, venture capital, right? We've got some private equity guys that have gone out and pursued whatever it is, everything in the world that doesn't isn't reside in these other two buckets, that's where everybody else is going. And the key is come up with a strategy and a plan to navigate there, and then network your way in that direction, right? So it's working, right? Members are finding success with this, this approach. So we're excited.
Awesome, man. No, well, hey, that's a success. Good,
I guess,
to kind of end it up on, right? No, I mean, the fact that you have the data is proof of success. You're sharing the data is not a sales pitch. It's like you don't even have to, necessarily say that it's because they did my program. It's just saying, here's the data of a group of retirees who went through a program. Happens to be my program. Like that's all. Either way, it's relevant data that just shows if you follow a strategy, chances of better results are going to happen, right?
Well, I mean, that's it. I mean, if we're fair, like, step into your transition with a plan. If you just did that, right, and a strategy, you're probably going to be miles ahead. We focused it a little bit more than that, but
that sounds obvious. But the problem is, I mean, it's harder than you think to really internalize that to so-called make your own orders.
Yeah.
Right. We're kind of expecting that we're just, my rank's going to get me something. So that's the plan.
Yeah.
And it will get you something. You might not like it, and you're probably not going to be valued for it.
May not be a good fit.
And I encourage people to step out of the box, when they're ready into that 40%, whether that's another corporation or something else, because, ultimately there's going to be a cap on salaries. So at some point, whether that's right at military retirement or a few years down the road,
right,
as you kind of figure out the landscape, you'll see like, why is this former military officer making $1 million a year? Like, what are they doing? Mm-hmm. That was my main thing. When I first met a podcaster who had gotten out as a Marine at 22, never went to college, he was making $1 million a year. And I was like, that's possible? Now he was doing it wasn't just a podcast. It was the podcast was the value add, was the way he was sharing information that people appreciated. Just one of 1,000 ways to do that. And I was like,
absolutely.
Oh, I need to learn new skills, not translate my military skills, new skills. And they're not in a college. They're not in a master's degree or a certified financial planning, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Those are just things you can Google now.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
I know it. It's an exciting world out there, right? A lot going on.
Dude. Yeah, no, cool to get back into it. Even though we're probably about to hit another break here with the holidays coming up, but that's all good. We'll kick it off again in the new year.
We'll be around. We're gonna be here local. We already putting content changes.
Speaking of local, let me share something with you. Another success coming out of the Take a Knee Tuesdays. A thing. We're in the early talks of setting up an event with a 10X Vets. Scott Mackus from 10X Vets. It's a business mastermind program I'm involved in. They got all sorts of high caliber, they've got, actually, I'm going to get with them to have someone come here and talk with us about venture capital and private equity, because those words get thrown around. And it's like, what is that?
What are they? What does it mean?
Yeah. So that'll be cool. So that'll be one thing we'll set up. I haven't told him that yet, but we'll get somebody from the group to come talk to us for sure. But he was telling a story on the last meeting we had, and it made me think of Tori. And I was like, we were talking about doing meetups. I was like, hey, do you do meetups? It's like, well, people are kind of scattered around the country. We once a year they get together in Naples. And I was like, what if we did a local meetup in the Hampton Roads area? I don't know how many members were here, but to kind of, introduce the idea of business masterminds and 10X Vets, to veteran business owners that don't know about these things, right? And also excuse to do a meetup that isn't about me or you or whatever, and to do it on Tori's boat.
That'd be great.
We're gonna talk about that earlier in the new year, and do it sometime in the spring when it warms up a little bit. Probably.
Yeah, no, it would be good, right? Tori's got a good gig going on there, and man, it's popular. He's busy. So
I know. Hopefully we can get fit in. No, just
I think he'd carve a spot for us.
Oh, for sure. All right, guys. Well, great session today, Mike.
Another wrap.
Look forward to seeing you all next week. Then take it easy.
I love it. Thanks.
Or next time. I don't know if it'll be next week.
No, we're around.
It's almost Christmas next week already.
I know, and it's crazy. 2024 is coming quick.
Let's get there. All right. Take it
All
easy,
right.
everybody.